Hello, it's Darren from Moonhair Studio, and a couple of years ago I did a feature on the Korg NanoKontrol 2. Well, to be honest, there's a lot more stickers on it now, and I think that video needs an update. So that video actually garnered more views and comments than any other on my channel, but it is due an update. Now, if you're not a Cubase user, there's still content for you here, but Cubase users, I'm going to delve quite deep into the process of setting this unit up in that DAW. If there's anything that you specifically want to get to, I've put index points in the video and in the description below, so you can jump straight to the point that you want to get to without wading through all the rest. But I think it's worth revisiting how you set this unit up to start off with, and this is a practical thing for everybody, no matter what DAW you're using. So let's look at that. So what do you get for your 40 or 50 pounds? Well, if you go to the Korg website, you'll see the bewildering variety of colours that this device comes in, both black and white. You get a transport bar, very standard features, all the stuff that you would normally get on a MIDI controller. And then you get 8 channels, each with their own fader, pan pot, solo, mute and record arm. Now you will need to visit the site to start off with, because you'll want to download this software. This is totally free. It's the Korg Kontrol editor. Just click on the version that you want for your platform, if you're on Windows or Mac, and then download that and install. It's all very straightforward. So before we delve into the more advanced programming features that we can do with the NanoKontrol 2, let's just look at the standard setup for a supported DAW. I'll put all of the key presses in the video itself as well, but you will have received, along with your unit, an instruction booklet which looks something like the sort of broadsheet version of the London Evening Standard from 1885. I think I'll forget that, because it is very straightforward. It's all the same. There will be a series of 2 keys that you need to hold down when you first boot this up. So for Cubase, it's set and rewind, and then you just plug your USB lead into the side, wait for the red light to stop flashing, and then you're all set up. You only have to do that once, and then it will be set for your DAW for the rest of the time whenever you boot up. Now, just to bear in mind that I'm using Cubase 11 here, but if you're using an earlier version of Cubase, then your studio setup may look a little bit different, but it's displaying all the same information, so you can still follow along with all these instructions. So although this is now set up for Cubase in this case, you will need to set it up in the DAW itself, and all DAWs will have their own way of doing this, but I'm just going to show you how this works in Cubase. We go into Studio Setup, and then we're going to have to add a device, and in this case it's going to be the Mackie Control. So that's Mackie Control 3. Go up into your MIDI inputs and outputs and just make sure that you've got NanoKontrol selected in those. Then you can apply that and click OK. And now this should act as a normal DAW controller. So we've got our play. Let's do rewind. We can go up and down through our marker tracks. And that's all working fine. We've got control over our faders, our solos and mutes, and record arm. So and pots all working. So there you go, you've got a really useful little controller that's controlling all the basic functions that you need within Cubase. Now where things get really interesting is when you go into what's known as CC mode. Then you can start programming all of your own functions into the buttons, the faders, the pan pots, whatever you want to do. And to set that up it's pretty much identical to how you would set up your normal DAW mode to start off with. So the actual physical unit you will need to unplug. And this time, instead of your DAW combination of keys, you're going to hold down set and cycle. So just hold those 2 down and connect it in the same way as you did before. Cycle button flashes red a couple of times, and now that is set to CC mode and not DAW mode. Now, as with normal DAW mode, we're going to have to connect this within Cubase for it to work. And to do this, instead of adding a Mackie control, we're going to add a generic remote. And you can see I've entered one in here. We need to connect this up to the Nano control, so click on both of those. And then delete any extra controller lanes here. We just start with the one. We're going to edit this one first. You want to title it with whatever controller you're using on the actual Nano Control 2. Now, although I'm going to show you this process from scratch, if you want to, down in the description below, you can download a map of the whole lot already set up for you, a template that you can adjust yourself to your own controls. But for now, let's just show you how you set it up. So we're going to double click here, call this play. And we need to learn the button because at the moment Cubase doesn't know that this is the play button. So we'll click on learn here, press the button, and it picks up the address automatically. And then set the flag to receive. Otherwise, again, this won't actually communicate with Cubase. Now that you've got that there, we can actually assign the function to the play button. So we know now what the play button is. That will be picked up by Cubase, but Cubase does not know what to do when you hit that button. So let's go in and search for transport, because we're going to program in the transport bar. This is a default, so just leave it as it is. And then we'll put start for this. Let's set up another one. We'll just add another one. We'll call this one stop. Again, we just want to learn the stop key, so press the stop key and it picks up the address. These never, by the way, show what you've typed in there until you click on the line, and then it follows what you've typed in there. It's just a quirk, so don't worry about it. And again, we can either just click on transport or search for it, and we'll put in stop. Now, if we apply that, that's now live. So theoretically, if we click OK, we've now got our very first programming of the Nano Control. Play and stop. Perfect. So we can save multiple templates with different functions programmed into them if you want. So let's export this one and we'll call it something simple. And just hit OK, and that is saved now. So if you want to import a previously saved template, it's very straightforward again. Let's go to the template which I'm going to provide for free, and there we go. So another template loaded in. You can see from this that I've programmed in all of the transport bar, and I'll go through just a couple of different little features of the transport bar that might be useful to you when you're programming your own systems, in that the cycle button is set with a flag toggle. That's really important because you'll notice here the green bar up there means that I'm on cycle mode, loop mode. If I hit the cycle button here, you can see it's turning it on and off. But if this is not set to toggle, then all that will happen is it will turn it on while you're holding it, and then it will go off again as soon as you stop holding the button, which is not what you want. And likewise, if you have it set for push button, it will turn it on, but then it won't turn it off. So make sure that if you're using something that needs to be toggling on and off, that you have that selected. You'll also notice that I've got rewind and fast forward here set to rewind and forward, but you have the option for a fast rewind or a fast forward. So you can decide whether you feel that the forward and rewind are too slow for you and that you would rather have these faster options there. Now for the rest of the template, I've set them out with very simple names. We've got F1 to 8 for the faders, we've got P for the pots, S, and I've got one programmed in there, but S is the solos, mutes, and record. So each controller on your Nano Control has an associated lane here that you can program anything you want into. So let's have a look at some of the things that I've programmed in. There's just a little bit of functionality you might use while I'm recording or mixing. For instance, I've got this Rhodes piano section here. If I click here, I can do locators to range, and then I can cycle that section there. Click on it, I can start playing. Let's just select, we'll just stop there and select, say, the first couple of bars. And I've got minus and plus octaves here, so I can step up and down like that. So if we go back to the left and play that. Actually quite useful if you're doing some string arrangements and you want to shift your violins around and things like that. How does that look in the studio setup? Well, I've got a studio setup button here, so we can have a look. We go down in the bottom here, and we can see here on my mute to button, I've got left and right to range. That's under the transport, and it's locators to selection. I mean, there are so many different things that you can choose to put in here, but that works quite nicely if you just want to loop around a section. Let's have a look at how I programmed in the octave ones. So here you can see I've got solo 4 and solo 5 set to down 1 octave and up 1 octave, and this is in the nudge command, so it's not in transport at all, and it's just down larger step. If you go to down, that will just take it down 1 semitone rather than a whole octave, but again up 1 larger step. So it's just a case of having a look at what functionality you like, and I like having the octave plus and minus next to each other because I can experiment around. Likewise, I've got nudge left and nudge right, which is again another useful one for just pushing your bar along a little bit. This is particularly useful in the vocal section, so if we just zoom in on this, you can see that all of my vocals are slightly offline, and that was to create a way for the vocals not to overlap each other exactly, because these are auto-generated, and you can see that in my previous video. So if I click on one of these, I can just use these buttons to nudge left and right by the amount that you see up in the quantize. So if we go to use quantize, you can set it as fine or as rough as you like, and just sort of nudge gently backwards and forwards to where you want something to be. Again, if you want to have a look in more detail at my setup, then please do screen grab any of these commands, and it'll give you an idea of where you can find these different commands, because they're not always obvious. But you know, macros, again, macros are great because you can program anything you want into a macro, and you can have a number of different things happen in a macro rather than just a single command. So now it's time to open up the Korg Editor Software, but there are sometimes issues with this. So here you can see this is grayed out. I can't show connected devices because for some reason it's not recognizing that I've got a NanoKontrol 2 connected, even though you can quite clearly see it is connected, the light's on. So in this case, you're going to have to close down the software, unplug your Korg NanoKontrol, and then plug it back in again. Now that flashes, we're back on, and let's try the software again. So this is what it should look like. It's showing only connected devices. We've got our NanoKontrol connected, so we can click OK, and then that will launch the software. So looking at the editor software, you've got an overview illustration of the whole unit, and each button, fader and pan pot is labeled with a CC number, so you can see all of these laid out here, and these can be changed. You can just click on them and it will highlight in this menu here which fader or knob or button that you're on. Equally, you can select them straight from here and you'll see them highlighted up there as well. But say you wanted to change fader 1 to 11, you can just type it in here and it's changed then. Equally, you can use these up and down arrows here to do that. But you can display all sorts of different information. The MIDI channel is usually set to 1. It's a global setting for each separate fader bank rather than each separate button within the bank. You've got the assign type. Now this could be important because you can assign knobs and faders to be enabled or disabled. So if you've disabled something in the control editor, it may be that you won't be able to access it in your DAW, and so do check back here if you're finding that fader just isn't working and you can't work out why. So make sure they're all enabled. Now, if we want to change something in our setup, say we wanted to change the CC of the first fader to 11, so we'll just type that in there. We can now save this as a new preset, so we can go up into the file menu, go save as, and then just pop that in there. That's saved it to our hard drive, so we can recall those now. So we're on CC11 here, and if I open up the generic controller, you can see it's back to 0. But that doesn't change what is actually on your NanoKontrol. It is only changing what's in the software itself. So you do need to write it to the unit for it to take effect. So go into communication, write scene data, click OK, and then that will store it. And the next time you boot up your NanoKontrol, it will come up with whatever changes you've made here. Now, this process is not always trouble-free. For instance, sometimes it just loses connection for some reason, and you'll go up into your communication, you'll do your write scene data as normal, and you get this message that comes up. So that means that that has not written to your unit. And the best thing to do, really, as I explained before, if the software won't find it when it starts up, is just to disconnect it, literally unplug it, close down your software, and then plug it in and try again. So we'll open up Korg Kontrol, and now we can see it's obviously connected because it's saying show only connected devices. So if we OK this and make our changes again, so we'll call that 11, and now if we go to write scene data, there, it's worked. So just bear that in mind. It's not flawless, but it's very easy to solve this issue. Now, to program the faders or the pots, I mean, I only use really a couple of faders, maybe 3, and the occasional pan pot. The easiest way I found to do that is through the track quick controls, which again are available in the studio setup menu. We will need to connect the NanoKontrol, so just click on those and connect that up. And then you can rename your controllers if you want. I have done that in the past, but the most important thing is that that doesn't affect what you're controlling at all. The important thing is to make sure that the address here corresponds to whatever control you want it to. So the easiest way to do that again is to learn, and then you just move whatever fader or pot you want to assign to it, and it will put in the correct address for you. You can obviously type them in direct if you want, if you actually know them, but this is the easiest way. So let's do a couple of pan pots as well. And remember that you need to set the flag to receive, otherwise Cubase just won't get any messages from your controller. So we'll just click all of those in. And like in other parts of Cubase, you can always save your preset to call up at a later date. So let's export it and call it test. And that's there to import again if you need it. So as I say, I did a version of this where I named the faders and the pots, and again, you know, you can just call these up at any time you like. So that's the setup. Let's have a look at how this translates into actually controlling an instrument. So let's look at this patch here. We've got a string section from Spitfire chamber strings. I want to be able to control the dynamics, probably vibrato and expression as well. So what we'll do is we'll go over to the inspector and open up quick controls. If you don't see quick controls there, just click on the cog, make sure it's ticked, and then just open it up, and you'll see that there's 8 slots there corresponding to the 8 controls that we programmed previously. Now you can automatically get default quick controls from the actual sample set itself. So if I click on that, it automatically populates them, but sometimes it populates them in a very weird way, because fader 3 is going to be unused, and that's not actually being used for anything. I've got dynamics in the right place, so that's great. So that fader will control the dynamics and you can see it moving. And I've got vibrato, well, that's okay, but my expression is in channel 7, which at the moment I've got set up as a pan pot, so I'm not going to really be able to use that effectively. So click here to remove all the assignments, and we'll put our own ones in. Now what I tend to do is use the MIDI channel CCs, because you've got all the CCs listed here. I know that the mod wheel is our dynamics, so let's just click down and put in expression on the second fader rather than all the way over on the pan pot. So that will be expression. Let's pop in the vibrato as well, which I know is CC21, so we'll pop that in there. And what I'm going to do is pan pot down here, I'm going to link that to the input filter and the pre-gain knob. Pre-gain is a really good way in Cubase of setting the level that's coming into your channel, so you can actually get your static mix or your balanced mix done. Pre-gain is a really useful tool with that, so we'll pop that on there because that's something that I can then use. But for now, let's just have a look at what's happening here. So we've got our modulation, and that is controlling our dynamics. We've got our expression working as well, so we've got that. So that's working nicely, and we've even got our vibrato. So that all works perfectly. So let's go into our channel settings, and we can see our pre-gain is down here. So if I move that, you can see that that's controlling my pre-gain, which means that I can then set the levels of my instrument coming into the channel. That would be great for your static mix. Now obviously the best thing to do then is to save this either with the channel itself. You could do that via a track archive, or it could be part of your template so that it always comes up every time that instrument is there. You've got all these settings just good to go. But you can save the settings here in the preset management section. So we'll save this preset as test. There you go. So now at any time I can call up any of these preset settings depending on what I've programmed in there, and they'll always be good to go. So the Korg NanoKontrol 2. That's how you program in some of those extra features that you might want to use. Useful addition, I think, on anybody's desk, and not very costly either. I use it mainly for the buttons, I've got to say, but you can program those faders in if you want to. In conjunction with track archives or templates, you could have those various track quick controls already pre-programmed into your tracks, so they'll be there, and you could have different features on every single instrument if you wanted to do that. So I hope that was useful, and if you've got any questions, obviously leave them below. Links as ever in the description, and I'll see you on the next one.